Have you ever come out of the rain? You've been out for a long time wearing your clothes, getting soaked. Maybe you're at a football game and you just got so waterlogged, you were chilly, you were cold and shivering, and all those feelings of feeling uncomfortable and sad and upset, and you just couldn't get out of those clothes quick enough. So you finally get home, you dump those clothes, put on something fresh and dry, and you feel good again? Or have you, in fact, ever had an experience maybe where you're in the cold north, maybe you're up in the northern states or so on, and you've been out in the cold shoveling snow, or been in skidoo suits, or you've been in some parkas and really heavy gear, and it's been really heavy and hot, but yet you're cold, and all of these weird, strange feelings. And then you jump into the house that's boiling hot. It's like 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 23 degrees Celsius. You dump all those clothes, you get in, and you are so comfortable, and life feels so grand. Well, that's probably the best way I can summarize my toxic work experience, my toxic career. And we've talked about this before. And I just wanted to summarize this whole, I've got the coffee today, but let's go for a little walk, shall we? And I've kind of gone through about, how I was in a what I consider a thriving career in the electrical field, kind of a little bit more of a, I guess, technical engineering types roles, often safety, very safety sensitive. And so it's not that the mind was never working. It's not that the mind was never active. I was always challenged. I always loved the work that I did. I always loved having to think, calculate, solve for a problem, and do it mathematically so that you can, it's interesting how you can take a problem that feels like a real world scenario where you see tangible items, you see power lines, transformers, you see equipment, and you see other issues, you see black marks because of a fault, a failure. And how you can translate that black stain on the side of a transformer to a calculation on numbers and tell you exactly how much incident energy was there and how bad of a scenario that could have been. It's truly amazing to be able to quantify a lot of your work mathematically when you see it in the real world. And that's basically a lot of what I did. And so, I always overthink, I like to think that I was always thinking, and trouble solving and problem solving, and that's just kind of the world I came from. So I was really enthralled in my work. I found it very challenging, and a lot of the people I worked for were great, or worked with, through the years. I had some careers, and some were better than others. And I mean, let's face it, a job is just that. It's exchanging time for money, really. And anybody who feels that it's much more than that, I think, there may be a rude awakening coming. And that's the downfall, is that often you get caught up, you get too comfortable in that zone, and you believe that these people are in fact authentic. These people are in fact your friends. These circles that we assume in our social world and at work, we think are people that we need to have in our lives. And in actuality, once you retire, you realize that is kind of the furthest thing from the truth, and none of them really care. And conversely, it goes the other way as well. Generally, it shouldn't go too much, because realistically, the ones that matter most are you, your family, and of course, your close friends, the ones that you've had around for a while, inside, outside, work, whatever. Those that have been with you through thick and thin, and through some of the harder times, and the ones that would truly give you, the shirt off your back, right? Those are the people that you want to have around. And so, I guess what I'll say is, living the career, you get in the world of what you're doing, and you start to believe that you're in the top of the world, and then you get into a scenario where, and I think a lot of people have seen this actually happen to them, and it's often people that are getting up there in age, where companies don't see the value in older people. So, when you're in your 30s, that you're onward and upward, and the future's bright, and there's lots that you can do, and certainly it's a scenario where you onward and upward, your positive outlook, the company's got a positive outlook, and the potential is huge for a lot of people. Oh, and by the way, I just saw a coyote run by here in that little bluff there somewhere. I gotta keep an eye on that. I just saw him running away, and hopefully he is just running away, and hopefully he's skittish. I guess worst thing, I douse him with the coffee. It's hot, so yikes. Yeah, you can get wildlife out here too. More of a concern definitely for the kids and for small pets. Usually they'll stay away from bigger people and that, but anyway, coyote, interesting. But yeah, enough about that. So as you hit your 40s, and I realize this, I start to live this firsthand. A lot of companies, if you haven't made some big strides, and they always used to tell you, especially in the corporate game, if you're not moving up, you're moving out. And by the time you're in your 40s, if you're sticking around in a role for more than 3 years, that was always the messaging. If you're around for more than 3 years, there's a high probability you're becoming stale. And a lot of people just love their jobs. I love my job, and a lot of people do. But then you start to, not just you start to feel stale, the company sees you as being stale in the company. Like they look at you like, is there nothing more from this person? Clearly, they're satisfied with status quo, and therefore will treat it accordingly. And so I saw this sort of slowly unfold in a scenario where the reality was I was trying to, make moves here and there for the odd role that did entice, but it was always somehow related to, what I did and my craft and my field. It was always sort of on the peripheral in some capacity. And I always tried to find relatable roles. But okay, fine. Time goes on. You don't get some jobs. You apply. You try different things. You move on. Then you roll into your 50s. That's it. And that's where I saw a definitive change, a shift. Not just, and it's, some might say, well, it's, our outlook on life. And some of it could be. But a lot of it is a company's outlook on an employee. Because now, technically, early retirement, I know in some places like Canada, considered an early grossly reduced pension retirement is actually at 55, or in some cases 55. So they know that a lot of people, once you hit their 50s, that person becomes unpredictable. They may not want to invest their time, their money in you. And they just don't see the value in a person that's 53 versus a person that's 32, when they know they still got some molding, some manipulation of this. They can carve them out like a wooden eagle, and they can make them into what they want. They can mold that person. Once you're 52, 53, 55, the molding is done. It's a hard, dried up block of clay. Pardon the pun. But anyhow, it's not really about that. What it is about is, as we get older, you start to get in the groove of, you start, let's just put it this way, as you get older, I think you become more dialed into what's going on around you. I think when you're young, you're just flighty and moving and shaking, and it just nothing seems to faze you very much. But as you roll into your, to your 40s, 50s, as you get older, as I did, I started to see attitude changes, people movement, here today, gone tomorrow, multiple layoffs and mass people reductions. And you see all these things, you become sort of desensitized, but you're also learning, and you're watching patterns and seeing the recognition, what's going on. You're seeing treatment that some of these people are getting. And then you often hear conversations in meetings between leaders that are saying, talking all kinds of, they're just talking about certain employees in a way that often isn't all that positive. Lo and behold, the next big sweep of people layoffs comes and goes, and that person was gone. So you start to realize quickly that it's, once they got you on the radar, they don't see the value in you, they want you gone, okay? So that's kind of what I saw. Now, what I will say is I saw some other things as time went on for me as well. Toxicity, the treatment, management, isolation, you get excluded, meetings, closed doors with some of your peers and you're not involved. You're not involved in some of the plans. You're not involved in some of these discussions. You're becoming less and less involved in some of the activities that seem to involve your peers. And so this often was a thing that was going on, and I saw more and more and more of this in the last, few years. And some of it may be related to specific leaders. Some of it may be related to, I don't know. But it starts to really take a toll on you. And I know there's a lot of people that say they love their jobs, and if you do, that's super. And I loved my job too for the longest of time, until I didn't. And when I didn't, that was all, in my mind, a direct result of the exclusion, the treatment, the toxicity in the office space, and the general dynamics that you would see that were shifting and that weren't there before, but they were there closer, transitioning in at the end. Examples, I've always had the work ethic of, a dollar earned is a dollar, what is it? A dollar, whatever. I can't even remember the phrase. I'm kind of grasping at straws here, but basically you earn every dollar that you work, work an hour, earn a dollar. Like basically put in your time, put in your energy, and do it the best that you can. And I've always done that. I've always felt that that's the work ethic because, again, coming from a farming background, my dad was always pretty old school farmer, construction superintendent. He was always the boss in his roles because he was one of the old school guys that would, hammer, yell and thump his chest. But he was good at what he did. He was very, very good at getting construction projects built. And he had a great skill set as well. So they loved having him around in the time when that was the type of attitude. Now, you can't thump and yell nowadays. It's a different world. But I learned a lot of that working with my dad sometimes, around the house, or even going golfing with him at times where, he'd get a little short on you once in a while. And so I quickly learned that, you work hard, you get her done, you move. That's just the way I was always born, in a farmer's environment. And everybody knows farmers, especially old school, small scale farmers that don't have all the big equipment, where they're dealing with livestock, chickens, pigs, cattle, of course, dealing with hay bales and doing the small crops and canola and all these things. Farmers it's a lifestyle, but it's also very, very hard work. And so that's where I come from. That's my background, essentially. I come from farming on both sides of my sides of my family. My mom, she had farming background, and so did my dad. And so that's, I mean, people can call me a lot of things, and they do, but lazy's not one of them. And I'll tell you that for free. But yet, I'd be in these environments in this corporate office. Whoa, what happened there? Yikes. And you get this isolation, this, I don't even know what to say, but it just, you knew you were on the outside looking in. And often I used to joke about it. And behind where there's smoke, there's fire. So when I'd say, it looks like I'm outside looking in, I'd put my face up to the windshield or up to the glass and kind of make jokes and make fun of it. But it's a reality. That's what it was. It was outside looking in. And you knew there was something brewing. And was I now transitioning to that guy that management was talking about 3 years earlier that eventually got the boots? It sure felt like I was becoming that guy. And it was tragic because all I ever wanted to do was thrive in my field, work hard, put in an honest day's work, and be the best that I could. And I always truly tried to live to that. Clearly not everybody had the same vision for me, and that's cool. But as time went on, I learned that skill set, and like I said, this isn't about a negative thing. This is trying to explain how I take an extremely toxic, chronic, nasty work environment that you don't even know how bad it is until you're out. And that's why, as I retire right now, or I'm retired, at least from the corporate game, and I'll say I still got side hustle action going on, but the more time that I'm now away from that environment, the more it becomes clear and evident as to what I was dealing with there and some of the things that were going on. And it was great. It's great now. After months, I'm starting to really see the light. And I do get people often saying, hey, that's a very well sought after career you have. That skill set is great. And I know all of you are coming from an amazing place of positivity, support, and truly, this channel has been a great way to live through my journey into retirement, transition out of the work environment and the corporate game and the 9-to-5, the hustle, and into a place where my mind has become more stable. Everything, life in general, is becoming more clear, and I just feel like I'm in the stride right now. And that's why all this toxicity in the work environment has really clarified some things. And not only has it clarified, I already mentioned, I started YouTubing back about 8-9 years ago. Just on the side, do it on weekends. It wasn't that serious. But it's interesting how, managers that don't have direct control on that, because they like to have control of that. And I found that constant pressure bearing down on me, saying I shouldn't do that, that's negative impact on you. People are watching, people are seeing, you shouldn't do that. I had all these people, upper levels, telling me that. I guess I could have just taken their word and said, okay. But had I taken their word, there's a pretty good chance the same outcome would happen. And I could, in fact, be in the same position where I'm still forced to retire. Doesn't matter. Maybe I'll last another year or two. Who knows if I listen to their advice. But, at the end of the day, I'm sure glad I didn't. I'm really glad I didn't. Here, let's take a swig. A lot of you probably think, hey, that's not even real coffee. Definitely real coffee in there. That's good. Anyway, I guess what I want to get to is, through the last X number of years, or so many years in my career, I had multitude of different direct supervisors, and there was a bunch of movement and things in the organization. And you go from a place where you go back like 10 years plus, and your supervisor is living kind of the philosophy of, their role is to remove barriers, hurdles, challenges, and make your life easier, or in this case, my life easier. And if there was issues bearing down, like there was issues with, say, controversial decisions, things that were getting escalated, often they would take on that role of kind of deflecting that to make sure that stuff didn't hit me hard. But then that transitioned, and as we saw these role shifts, we literally got to a place where there was a manager that said to me once, look, you can handle the situation, but I'm going to step out of the way if there's any fallout, and I'm going to move to the side, and you're going to wear the brunt of it. That was literally almost verbatim. And I quickly learned, and this was a newer, one of my newer leaders that came in and had that conversation with me. And I knew right there, that was a turning point for me. It was absolutely bizarre. And that same person too also said to me, I'd highly recommend you stop this this YouTube nonsense. And that's absolutely hilarious, because now with that attitude and with these perspectives and the toxicity building in this work environment, I was more motivated than I've ever been motivated in my life. And so I took this what do we say? I guess I'll call it the side hustle. At the time, it was just more of a weekend hobby, which it still is a hobby, but it happens to, generate a little bit of income. These conversations with some of these toxic leaders took me to a place where I was so motivated to escalate my side hustle so that I knew I could 100% replace my job had I have a problem. And we got flies. He seems to like the phone here. I was so motivated. Trust me. Yeah, I don't even know if you can recognize the amount of motivation I experienced to make something out of this side hustle. Was I motivated. And so here's the problem. I could have gotten lazy. Had I been in a scenario with a leader that was great and didn't abuse and neglect and isolate and all of those things, maybe I had a great leader. Some of these big decisions to move people along are at HR level and beyond, executives. And so you could still have a direct leader that you love working with and for, but you don't even know when your time's coming. That's even harder to predict. At least these people wore their heart on a sleeve, if you will. I knew there was something brewing. It was obvious to me. The toxicity was building. The uneven treatment where some people only need to come in a couple of days a week. It's all good because they're congeniality. And yet others grind it out 9 to 5, 5 days a week, showing up, doing all the support work and doing all that, and yet constantly getting pushed and isolated and nudged around. And it was pretty clear to me that my days were numbered. But with all this toxicity and work environment that was just getting me down, again, I saw this as a great opportunity to thrive. I was so motivated. Again, I'll say this one more time. I was so motivated to do more that didn't include these people, because then I knew I wasn't held tightly by a leash. So if something happened, I could walk away and say, you know what I could say? Take this job. And what is it? Johnny Paycheck said that old song. Johnny Paycheck, take this. What was the lyrics there? Take this job. How did that? Anyway, all I want to say is I was getting comfortable in my role for many years. You're comfortable. You're cruising along, 22,000 feet. Life's good. You're trying to get up to the next tier, get up to 30,000 feet. A few bumps along the way, have to drop back down to 22,000 feet, so to speak. Pardon the analogy, it's kind of weak. But, I too, like many people, just get comfortable in their roles. But what you've got to remember is, I took a message from an old friend of mine that he was on the way out of the company, but he was retiring on his own terms. He had been there quite a few years. I think he was there like 25, 30 years. And he had retired, and I chummed up with him quite a bit. He was one of my peers numerous years back, and this guy was top shelf. Loved the guy. I truly loved him. Everybody used to make jokes. Hey, 4:30, taillights and dust, and there he goes. His truck sailing out the gate. See you later. Adios, amigos. He knew how to balance work and life. And the message I got from him was never more inspiring, because he was sort of on not the last 5 years, because that was the worst time frame ever in my life and working career. He was the 5 years prior to that. This guy was awesome, man. He knew how to balance it. Him and I, we'd have chats. He's like, look, we're just a number. We're just trading time for money. And again, that's fine. That's what we do. We need money. We need to pay for this kind of stuff and a roof over our head. So we know that. But as long as we realize that, as long as we recognize that for some reason companies don't want us around anymore, it could be as easy as saying sayonara. It's almost a scenario of don't even bother taking it personally. Like, I don't take the fact that I was thrust into retirement personally. I mean, there's probably a big part of that, but I actually am very thankful. These people, in a lot of cases, thought they were going to upset the apple cart. But guess what? Not a chance. I was prepped, ready to go. I had the side hustle moving, and we're golden, off to the races. But had I waited for that big day, now I'd be sitting on ground level wondering, scratching my head, what should I do? But I'll tell you what, I was ready to go, and I was doing it, and I was in transition, and I didn't miss a beat. But now I'm moving myself into a position where it's much better. I'm doing this on my terms and my schedule. Am I working? You could debate. It's like woodworking is working, knitting is working. It's all technically working, but it's a hobby. It's a side hustle. It's fun. I enjoy it. I call my own shots. I don't have to request vacation time. I'm doing it my way. And that, my friends, I have to tell you, working for this toxic 9-to-5 corporate, whatever you want to call it, as many people do, is just trading time for money. Don't take it personally, but don't get sleepy either. And me getting sleepy, had I not had the side hustle, I could have been in a predicament, as a lot of people are. When you're launched into retirement unexpectedly, or even worse, had I been, say, 42 and I was thrust out of the company, now you're having to scramble and go get a job somewhere else. Yeah. This toxic work environment motivated me to a level I can't even explain, on a whole new, and let me just say, I'm better than I've ever been. I'm brighter, I'm sharper, I see what's going on around me. I've learned a lot of great life lessons. I take this all as a positive. So all that toxicity was bad in the moment, but I've learned from this. I've moved on. Life is grand. Sun's shining every day, even when it's not shining, the sun's shining. I feel amazing. I'm doing my own side hustle. I'm making $1, whatever. But I'm able to do what I want, when I want it. And I'm simplifying my life in every other way as well, which we'll talk about that in other videos. I've already been thinking about that one too. But anyway, life is great. I'm the best person I can be today. And it's all in part due thanks to that toxic work environment and that 9-to-5 corporate grind. Adios. So, when people say, well, you can get back in the saddle, I don't like that saddle. It smells like somebody farted in that saddle. I'm good. So, sorry about that. Anyway, that's kind of bad. But all I'm trying to say is, getting sleepy in your role can put you in a bad spot. Prepare, be engaged, be forward thinking, think about the what ifs. Where are you going to be? What are you going to do? Make sure you invest your money. Make sure you don't get yourself too deep in hawk. Do all those things so you don't rely so heavily on the corporate hand. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below, everybody. This has really, really been a trying year. Of course, with the loss of, my second parent and dealing with that, of course, when the job hits and all these things just coming at you. It has been some serious stress, but boy, I'll tell you, I'm in a much, much better place today. So hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.